Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I will call the November 12th Select Board meeting to order at 5:30. We'll accept the agenda as printed. I don't believe that there are any changes. And turn to announcements. Oh, Libby.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got, this meeting is being video and audio recorded. The town is going to be hosting some public informational sessions on PFAS this fall and winter. The information is on the agenda. The first one is next Monday, November 17th at 5:30 in the community room. Again, and there's a link to that on the select board agenda. The 2026 annual town meeting warrant is currently open for citizen warrant article submittals through Monday, November 17th at 4. And we have a guide to preparing a citizen warrant article. Please read it before you submit your article. It's very helpful. The Affordable Housing Trust is seeking feedback on a new rental preservation program. Information's on the select board agenda. They are seeking feedback via a survey, and it should take less than 5 minutes to complete. It can be accessed by link on the select board meeting agenda. And I think that was it for announcements.
Thank you. Are there any opening select board announcements or comments? Okay, seeing none, I have been provided with a response to some questions made at last week's meeting from 11:5. Mr. Williams asserted the investigation was scheduled to begin on November 1, and as of November 5, it has not started. This is in regard to the African Meeting House review. The town response: the preparatory work to launch the investigation began in October. LCG, the firm engaged in undertaking the work, posed a series of questions to town council.
Don, someone is saying your mic isn't on. The guy's gonna. Oh, it should be. Okay. Never mind.
Okay. Do you want me to start on this?
Yeah, we'll see what
Okay.
they zap again.
The LCG, the firm engaged in undertaking the work, posed a series of questions to town council, which required time to answer. The responses to LCG were provided as quickly as possible, but at a time when there was also significant demand upon town council in preparation for the November 4th special town meeting. Additionally, Dr. McNabb, the select board liaison for this issue, had 2 preparatory meetings with LCG, one on October 3rd and one on November 5th. The investigation has begun. Mr. Williams also said that Barbara Burgo sent several emails and received no response as of November 4. The town's response: Ms. Burgo emailed Dr. McNabb on October 31, and he responded on November 2nd. She emailed again on November 2nd and had yet to be responded to by November 5th. Mr. Williams said the select board said Ms. Burgo was supposed to be allowed to participate in the process. The town's response: it was made clear to Ms. Burgo that she was welcome to provide feedback during the selection process
at the public meetings held for this purpose. Ms. Burgo did not attend. Mr. Williams: I never got the revised RFP from July where we were supposed to add a couple of different items. The town's response: an email was sent to cliffack@yahoo.com on July 18th, 2025 at 8:49 a.m. The email included an attachment titled Addendum Number 1 African Meeting House Investigation, 6/2025.pdf. Mr. Williams: I would like to call for a meeting to straighten out the direction of the investigation. And the town's response: Dr. McNabb will schedule a meeting of the work group in the near future. So those were the responses to those statements from last week.
And the mics are all good now.
Everything's
It was
fine?
a little rough and they just fixed it.
Okay. Next up, we have public comment for items that are otherwise not on our agenda for discussion tonight. And we just state your name for the record and try to keep topics to 3 minutes.
Okay. Clifford Williams, thank you for the response. The RFP, whatever response they gave to me or email they sent to me, the only link I got showed the old RFP. It didn't show any updated RFP as agreed upon by the group. So maybe I didn't pose the question or didn't pose it as a question last time, that I could actually get the updated RFP finally. And I have requested for quite some time for a meeting, and I look forward to getting a date, hopefully if you could give it to me, for when we are going to meet, and hopefully meet with the group. And I'd like to concede the rest of my time to Barbara Burgle if I could.
She can have her own. We don't concede.
Yeah, anyone can have their own time.
Thank you for conceding to me, Cliff, and now I have more items to discuss based on that feedback. And
Let's
thank you.
just start with your name for the record.
I'm
you have
getting to that.
your
Thank you.
3 minutes.
He said he was going to concede his time.
It doesn't work that way.
Oh, the last meeting I saw was somebody conceded time twice or 3 times.
And
We clarified our policy.
When, may I ask? Okay,
Why
so
don't
my
you
name is
just
Barbara
start?
Burgo, and many of you are watching tonight here in the audience or otherwise and know already who I am. Yes, this is getting quite frustrating, as you can imagine. And so now I'm not happy, okay? I was coming over here trying to be calm. For those who don't remember, I am a resident of Brewster of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and an impassioned advocate for civil rights and human rights. I am a former 10-year board member of South Coastal County's Legal Services, former state president of American Association of University Women of Massachusetts, and a former elected official in the town of Brewster Housing Authority Commission. So let me get started with some of the answers before we run out of time, okay? I did pay attention to one of the first 2 meetings that you had. The first one I couldn't get on, I believe. And it said, did not attend. I know it is on record that Mr. McNabb, who became chair, I don't know how, Mr. McNabb, the chair, said, there is no need for Barbara to be here. Or let me qualify that, because now I'm going to have to look up those meetings. But I asked my group before we got here, how many times do you think it was said by Mr. McNabb and others that there is no need for Barbara to be here? Dawn, I was happy for you to start giving the answer, because you did say I was welcome to come. When the meeting started, I was watching them from Brewster. I was going to have something to say at public comment. The first meeting, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said there will be no public comment because this was a first introductory meeting. So I was shut down because I had public comment. The second meeting, or the third, whichever one, I couldn't figure out where the meetings were being held and when and why. So I did this from home again, and I heard from McNabb and chimed in by somebody else, you might want to review it, that Barbara Burgo was not needed. So don't say I didn't attend. I was not welcomed by the chair that you so slyly slid into this working group. Who voted in Mr. McNabb as chair? And why are we still getting this slippery slope that we have been going through for all of these months? You know what? Stop me when I'm done. 7 years, 8 months, and 1 day. 92
Ms.
months,
Burgo,
1 day.
your
Or
time.
400
Ms.
weeks
Burgo, your
and
ti-
3 days.
Ms. Burgo, your time is
Or 2,803 days. Or 67,272
Ms.
hours.
Burgo, your
or
time is up.
4,036,320 minutes. Why am I being stopped when all of your other constituents or town residents did not get stopped the last few times I've heard? I would like to get a recording of when that referring to someone else's minutes and deferring their time had been stopped.
It was
just
it was
this
in
year?
February.
In February. Thank you very much. I saw a meeting where somebody else was up here in the summer and she was allowed to continue.
And
What is different?
I have let you continue.
What?
Do
No,
you
didn't
have
let me
another? Do
continue.
you have
stopped me.
another?
I continued on purpose, just the way they did before. What is different about me? What is different about this African meeting house thing that you folks have not been fair 1 second of the time? Non-transparency, town members, what are you paying the salaries for? Or what are you voting them back in for if we can't get justice on Nantucket?
Well, again, the investigation has begun, so we'll stay tuned for more information.
How do we know? You're not supposed to answer during public comment.
I was referring back to this.
You're not supposed to answer during public comment. I couldn't continue.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. Okay, we'll resume the meeting and return to public comment. Please state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, Gail, just please state your name for the record. No, I said, please state your name for the record.
Okay.
She said we're resuming the meeting.
I didn't tell you to sit down.
My hearing is lessening. So good evening. I'm Gail Holgate. And the last time I was, oh, sorry. You can hear me now?
Yeah, drop it down a
Louder?
little bit. There you go.
Shorter. Okay. So the last time I was here, I said, this is not going away. This thing is not going away. So what's going on? Who has dropped the ball? And I yield the remainder of my time to Barbara Berger.
Can I just say that in our Public comment policy, section E, number 4, a recognized speaker may not cede or assign their time to another unless it's a reasonable accommodation for such person because of a disability. So there's no ceding time.
So I can't do what
No.
you just did. Okay.
Hi, Luke Thornwell. I can't think of a, can you hear me? In terms of seating time, I can't think of a more appropriate point in time in which to do something for our community, because there's no graver sort of community solution we're looking for than what's currently in the African Meeting House. So I'd ask you to consider that. I want to know, I came here wondering, whether this work group was functional, and I'm thinking even now it's even more dysfunctional than I thought, because I had no idea that I was never informed as the small work group that meetings had been taking place with the investigators we chose. So for me to read now that that's already happened, it's just a testimony to the dysfunction and lack of communication. I'm sorry, Malcolm, but you're not communicating with the board. And I think that's really, it's disappointing. I'm requesting a meeting with the investigators as we discussed we would have, and they requested. And when we all met together and were speaking to them on Zoom, this was something they requested and we all agreed to. I don't understand, there certainly doesn't seem to be much respect for the rest of the work group for you to go on your own and talk with the investigators. We all put in a great deal of work, and one would think that as a group, we would all conclude together as a group. I don't know now whether, my job is going to happen. There's been no communication to suggest what's going on. It's confusing, and I've shared some other thoughts last week. I think under the circumstances, I'd like to give Ms. Berger the rest of my time, and I would hope that the town would respect the importance of this matter. Thank you.
Good evening, Campbell Sutton. I'm going to just pop up right now, but I do have my own public comment I'd like to make. It seems that, now I'm not sure here, but if it's a public meeting, it would seem anyone from the public should be invited, anyone, right? If it's a public meeting, that's my understanding of a public meeting. If it's a work group, that should still be posted and people should still be able to witness that. If it's a public hearing, then the public should be able to input, correct? So I think we're sort of missing something in that regarding this situation. And you also do, I believe from my experience in watching you also have committee updates that each of you are to present, and that might be a perfect time for someone that's working with these people to speak up and say what progress is being made. I came last week and I was just a little concerned because, quite frankly, I thought things were moving along, and to find out that we're not moving along because no one's notified of where we are, then yeah.
Campbell, I don't know if you were en route, but I just read a full page of responses.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was taking Mom to Art class, so I totally missed that.
No, I
Sorry.
just wanted to let you know because
Thank you. And I would also ask that people not get up and yell and scream, because I find it so offensive that I lose my support for whatever is going on, and you sort of lose track of what's going on. So I just ask people to be a little calmer. Not necessarily kinder, but calmer is good. And I'll leave and come back.
if you have another public comment, just come, we'll restart the timer. If it's on a different subject.
Yes, completely different subject.
Yeah, did we? Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's 3 minutes total. You still
Oh, I
have
thought
time,
it
Kimball.
was if there was a totally separate subject. Okay, sorry.
She had one more minute left.
You have a minute, Campbell, if you want it.
Okay, in my 1 minute, when I first got up here, I said I had another thing on my own to say that was going to take more than the 1 minute, so I know you're going to shut me down. Nonetheless, this has to do with the HDC meeting last Tuesday, where we had before us an appeal, and I listened to quite a bit of it, and it's another situation in which procedurally, that could have been called, that HDC appeal could have been called. The arbitrary and capricious really was that they had no format, that they have no formal format that's publicized, that can be followed for demolition, that they follow. It seems to be rather random. And they're their own concluding body, the HDC, and I'm not sure that any of them actually have a degree in historic preservation or historic architecture. They're more about building than not building. So I know I'm losing it, but I really think this is important because I would strongly suggest that the board ask the HDC to
time.
have a format with the
Campbell, your time is up.
We have to respect everybody. I meant that to include you.
And anyone is welcome to speak to us in writing at any time. All of our email addresses are on the town website, and you can speak to the whole board. Is there any further public comment this evening? There's no hands online. There's no new business. Approval of minutes, warrants, and pending approval of minutes and warrants. There are no pending contracts this evening.
Move approval. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That carries unanimously. Town managers report.
Okay. So first off, we had our annual employee appreciation event last Thursday, the 6th. We tried a new location, the Nantucket Inn, and it worked out great. And I just wanted to mention, give some recognition to the employees who were awarded years of service pins, which is our way of recognizing that. We had 3 retirees, first off, that were recognized. Carlos Morera, he was a dispatcher. He retired this year, 10 years of service. Ann Cimitaro worked at the police department in admin, 10 years of service. And Debbie Crooks, who worked at the airport for 26 years. And then we had, I'll just go by department, 2 people with 5 years of service at the airport, Maria Basheva and Edward O'Keefe. And Maria worked for finance as well prior to going to the airport. Garrett Allen, airport, he had 25 years of service. And DPW had some pins as well. Kevin Kenichi, 5 years of service. Ryan Clark and Tony Grant, each with 10 years of service. Ray Sylvia, 30 years of service, and Nikki Duart and Dale Gary, 35 years of service. We call those the heavy hitters. Fire department had several people with 5 years of service: Ivo Bachev, Mario Cameron, Christopher Gould, Alana Macy, Mac McGrath, Stephen Toffey. And we have a 10-year firefighter, Kevin Ramus. Corey Ray had 20 years of service. We had some Health and Human Services staff: Jericho Mealy, 5 years, Sean Reed, 5 years, John Hedden, 10 years, and Ginny Carrera, who works at the Saltmarsh Senior Center, 20 years. In Human Resources, we have Theodora Stockett. She's our Assistant Director, 5 years. IT, Nate Porter, our GIS person, 20 years of service for Nate. Island Home had several people with 5 years of service: Mary Beckford, Paulette Brown, Shauna Myers, and Vivian Walker. They all had 5 years. Erin Riley, the maintenance person at Island Home, 10 years of service. And 2 people with 25 years of service, Nadine Hay and Fernella Phillips, and 1 heavy hitter with 35 years of service, Sandra Arouge. In the plus department, we had Fiona Johnson, 5 years of service, Holly Backus, our preservation planner, 10 years of service, several people in police and marine departments, Christy Bassett Baker, 5 years of service, couple police officers with a police officer with 5 years, Jack Moran, Camille Noble, 5 years as a dispatcher, Amy Baxter, our licensing administrator, 10 years, Patrick Considine, he's a dispatcher, 10 years, couple of police officers with 10 years, Michael Mastriano and Amanda Schwenk, and let's see, a couple of 20-year police officers, Janine McMullen, Brett Morneau, 20 years, and Sewer, our office manager at Sewer, Laura Cabati, 10 years, Paul Boucher, 25 years Paul has with between Sewer and DPW. In town administration, we have Rick Sears, deputy town manager, 5 years, Katie Cabral, our office manager, 10 years, and Greg Tivnan, the other deputy, 15 years. And I think lastly, we had Robert Earl from the water department with 25 years of service. So they all were issued pins and thanked, and we thank all of the employees who attended and all of our employees who weren't able to attend for their service to the town. The next item under the town manager's report. Okay, so I did not have a chance yet to update the next outline of potential town-sponsored warrant articles. There wasn't much that changed anyway between last week and this week. You will have an update at your meeting next week. There was an item that came up after last week's meeting, which I spoke with town council about, and he can speak to it if need be, but it was revisiting the concept which has been raised in prior years of amending the HDC enabling legislation to eliminate appeals going to the select board, but proceeding directly to Superior Court. So I don't know if you want to talk about that now or wait till next week, but John did weigh in on that.
Yep, I actually emailed a request to consider that after last week's appeal, and I just think we should have a conversation about whether it makes sense or not. I feel sometimes like we get lost in what we can and can't do and what the threshold is and so on and so forth, and so it feels, I always end up feeling fuzzy after we make those decisions. As much as I'm confident in my vote at the time, I based on the information we have, we're not experts on this, and we're not experts on the law. And so I just wanted to have a conversation about whether or not this should be a legal matter rather than an administrative matter. And obviously, with it having to be a home rule petition, the timing to have that discussion would be now unless we wait for the next town meeting, so.
Yeah, I think we should ask the HDC what they would like and ask the Historical Commission as well, and get some input on it. I wouldn't want to pretend to know, sort of push it forward. There's also some other things the HDC has been talking about, for years that maybe, they have, because we were the earliest, there are others that have had HDCs after us that have a bit more jurisdiction, a bit more power than we have right now, which is something that has been discussed for years. So, I would like to wrap it all up once and not send this up, have it sit for 3 or 4 years, then have potentially other things that should be along with it included. So, so as much as and I think some of it is a result of the HEC is sort of is trying to streamline and move along, and they don't want to be there 3 or 4 hours a night, and that's fine, but I think that that is coming at a bit of a cost of public engagement and a beginning of a lack of trust from the public toward the HEC. I've attended a couple meetings and seen the head shaking, and so I think that some of this is, needs to be sorted out from that perspective, and there could be things like splitting it up into, into 2 boards, one that deals with fully historic and one that deals with everything else, or doing some other things so that the ones that need the time and the attention can get the time and the attention that they need, and everything else can go quickly. So there's different tacks, I think, that the HDC should be, could be, I'm not gonna say should, because I'm not gonna tell them, but could be exploring to streamline this, just to streamline the process a bit. So anyway.
Yeah, Matt, your comments are really more comprehensive than, I think my email was a little bit reactionary to last week's meeting, but I also think, that whole assessment was done, that whole contract. Maybe we should start with an opportunity to hear from the HDC on where they are in terms of the recommendations in that report, which ones have been adopted, which ones haven't, why not, and are there some that are being worked on? It feels like it's been a while. I have heard recently in the community that their process is clearer and the backlog has been resolved, and that's great news. But I think the idea that I think the thing that puzzled me about this appeal last week was the notion that by allowing the demolition, they had, in essence, determined that the building wasn't protected. And I don't think we have the authority to make them change their processes. So that's what's confusing to me as well. And if some of that's embedded in that report, I'd love to see what their thoughts are on it and get more of an update.
I would just want to follow up. Could we have that report sent to us again? It's about a year or 2 old. You could probably send it to me faster than I could find it.
Yes, we can send it.
I think we should start with that, and then, as said, schedule a meeting, review that, and hear what the HGC has to say.
Yeah, I do feel like it should be more of a court appeal process where new information can be introduced, and it's not necessarily just arbitrary and capricious or procedural defect. But I would want that to be supported by the HDC and the community, and also to make any other changes before we send up a whole home rule petition, which we know the state loves so much. Get it when they get those from us.
Yeah. And I think a part of we are here to, we're the representatives of the, for the island, and we are here, to, sort of to speak up when we see something that isn't right, or, maybe that, I don't think that we can just trust, process or way it's written, because we're all sort of, we're all doing the best we can. So how do you, but if something isn't right, we have the opportunity in this process now to say, hey, this isn't right. I served on boards that would send things back and remanding they don't like it because then they feel like we're criticizing them. But there were times, I'm going back 15, 20 years, we'd send it back, and most of the time it didn't come back to us, and it actually didn't go to court. The people that felt like they were aggrieved had a chance to be heard, and the HCC would, make some changes, and it didn't really come back to us. And so I think that our process, it isn't just, I think, the HCC that has to think about it. I think that we have to think about our process and be willing to, to make a hard decision that's saying no to somebody or saying, geez, try better, That's how I view our position. It isn't necessarily to, I don't like to be painted into corner by, being told it's not legal or it's not possible or whatever. You know, I think we have to follow more than just that at times. So I think that's for us to have some self-reflection on it wouldn't be the worst thing either.
Hi, if I could.
Yes,
Campbell
Campbell,
Sutton.
just
Just seems like it's a
briefly.
moment when I could maybe piggyback on something Matt's saying. Because one of the things that seemed to me to come up was that circular piece with, because we've decided to demo it, it's therefore not a structure of importance. And so it, you know, like one of the things I would suggest at the beginning of their process for demolition, like you have demolition, then the steps you need to follow, right? Would be something in there where one of the first things that's determined is whether the structure has significance, you know, historically or whatnot. And it would seem to me that that could be done with the other HDC, the historic districts, you know, those people, the ones with a sidewalk. Okay, the Historics Commission. And, you know, in tandem with the NHA and maybe the NPT in it, and with Holly Backus. And so sort of have some outside look at that significance issue first before it's fed into the demolition piece. Because that's the missing link in my view. And I, you know, I do feel like we are beginning to lose a lot of our historic importance within the community as we just sort of grow and build out, and it becomes just lesser of a thing. But anyway, that was one of the things I was just going to sort of put forward, is that needs to be determined first, and then you can go from there. So thank you.
Thank you. Brooke?
I'd like to go back to that review, because I think that some elements of this were in there, and I'd like to hear from the HDC if they haven't implemented those recommendations, why not? And particularly if it creates a situation like we had last week, is that avoidable in some way? So I think I'm okay with it not being anything we push forward to this year's town meeting, but I would like to see it on the agenda as another conversation with the HDC.
Okay. Anything else on town meetings?
And I heard a rumor we have a couple more HCC hearings coming, so we'll have a chance to warm up for it.
We do, but they're different. They're not demolitions.
No, I know.
Other contentious topics like deer and alternative energy. Brooke?
On this topic also, Carol Greenberg has submitted a revised version of the noise bylaw that we should probably take another minute to go through. She made some adjustments based on the feedback, which I think respond well to what we got for input from the community. So I'd love for us to just close the loop on that one and decide definitively whether we're going to sponsor it.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
When we get to another HCC appeal, maybe we can ask Town Council George Pucci to do an overview on arbitrary and capricious and what our exact standards are, because I really struggled with that one last week and heard from a lot of members of the community. And I completely agree with all Campbell's comments and everything that's been said here. This is all stuff we should take a look at. But, and we can disagree, and that's healthy and good, but I still think that at the end of the day, that our standard as we've applied it lately, it's a very high bar. And it was a tough one. So I'd like to hear a little bit from more town council on like what is kind of reasonable and prudent, if you will, in what we can and can't do, but also what we are allowed to read into and things like that. Because there's a lot of stuff being said out there, and that we can't base our decisions on those sorts of things. We can only what's in our packet and what's said in this, and I just don't want to get too far off track with these things. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I'd very much like to hear about from town council before we start another one.
Madam Chair, I just had one more comment on that. We still have to have a high bar, or we'll have a meeting after every HDC meeting. Somebody will be upset with something that's said, so. We have to look at it, but let's not make it too easy.
And if you would think back to last week, he did give us, a couple options if we wanted to remand it or deny it. He did say, yeah, that could be, and that could be. So he was giving us, the outs if we wanted them, so I think, and some of the things in our packet gave us the outs if we wanted to take them. So that, I think that's, it's, anyway.
Okay, remember, we're on warrant articles right
yes.
now. We're
Yeah.
really
Okay,
not
but
on.
Just quickly, oh shoot, I'm gonna have forgotten it. Oh darn, Matt was just saying, oh, I know, what brought me up was, it seemed last week the issue would have been procedural, not arbitrary and capricious. But with the way that they don't actually have a defined procedure, it's hard to find procedural because there's really no defined procedure which you can point to. That's what I want to say.
Right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, let's just remember that they are an independently elected commission with a series of guidelines. So it's a difficult thing for us to review. One thing I did think, and I know that this isn't going to be very popular, but I think when we're going to have a public hearing like that, we need town council in the room, because there was a little bit of a disconnect with some, like, George would keep talking when somebody else was asking something, and it made it more challenging. Sorry.
Ready to go to the next item? Ready to go to the next item?
Yeah, well, did we want to talk about the noise bylaw, or we're going to talk about that next week?
It's not in your packet, so there's nothing to review yet.
Okay,
We can add it separate next week like we had it last week.
okay. And I mean, I've continued to get additional feedback from people. Okay, next item.
Okay, so just quickly, we'll ask George to come in person for the upcoming HCC appeals. The next item is your proposed 2026 Select Board meeting schedule. I think Eric is going to take you through it.
Sure, thank you. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the proposed draft schedule that's in your packet. One change is that the licensing administrator asked us to change the date of your licensing and petition meetings. So far, it has been the second Monday of the month. It gets tricky sometimes because of the planning board schedule, and some of these applications have to go to the planning board. She'd like the planning board to be heard first and then come to the select board. So I've tried to do that, but it wasn't always easy. So in January, the third Monday would have been the 19th. That's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So now we've got the 26th for licensing and petitions. Same thing in February, it's on the 16th. And also, we don't meet the week of the 23rd because of school vacation week. So it is the second Tuesday in February. March, it's as it kind of should be. April, same issue with January. So it would be the last week. May, normal. June, that's the second week because we don't meet the week of the 17th. Or no, that is the second week, never mind. Or the third week, so that's normal. July, August, that's all the same. For September, I did push it out because of Yom Kippur. And then October is the 3rd. As we get into the holidays next year, a little tricky with some of our holidays, but I think it worked out the way it's been requested. So I would ask if everybody's in favor to vote to endorse this draft schedule so we can get it on the books.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Select Board reports and comments. The Community Claims Fund from the Vineyard Wind Turbine Blade Failure Administration Overview.
So, Madam Chair, I have a quick intro to this. On September 10th, the board approved Veris LLC to be the administrator to manage the Community Claims Fund. And the Claims Fund is established under the settlement agreement between the town and GE Vernova from the blade failure. Veris will manage all aspects of the claim fund, and we have a presentation here, and they have representatives on to take you through and answer any questions. Mark, is he going to be the speaker?
Yep, we have Mark Eveland.
Yes, thank you, Libby, for that introduction. And Caitlin McCurdy, I have to give a lot of credit to her and her team as well. We've been working very collaboratively with Cultural Heritage Partners on this since September 10th to put together the program I'm going to present this evening. By way of a reminder, an introduction of Veris, myself, and the team. I'm Mark Eveland. I am the founder and chief strategy officer of Veris, and I've been involved in designing settlement programs since roughly February of 1993, when I first got involved in this type of work. Over the course of my 30-plus year career, I have been involved in designing, implementing, and managing settlement programs that have at this point liquidated over 8 million claims and distributed over $9 billion in settlement funds to deserving claimants. So this is not my first rodeo. Included in my background, we have done work on very similar types of claims involving business disruptions. Most recently, our involvement in managing claims on behalf of businesses whose finances were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and helping them access government programs to fill in the gaps in their finances to see them through that pandemic. Over the course of that program, we represented several hundred businesses and recovered in excess of $50 million from government programs to help those businesses through that rough patch. Now, I won't dwell much more on my background, but I want to be very respectful of the board's time this evening. I will go through the program a fair level of detail, but if I gloss over anything that you're particularly interested in, by all means, feel free to ask, and I will be happy to dive in deeper. I'm not sure who's controlling the presentation, but if we could go to the next slide after this one, there. The program that we have laid out, this is fairly typical of most settlement programs that we administer. I would think of it as 9 separate phases in the process. And I'll go into more detail in subsequent slides on each of these phases. It begins with a legal notice, which starts the clock running. We'll show you an example of what the draft legal notice looks like later in this presentation. But on the date that notice is published, we would open up claiming. We would publish a link to a portal where people could register online to file claims and begin the process of submitting claims. And we would provide, in the program we've designed here, a 6-month deadline for submitting a claim. So from the day that the notice is published through 180 days later, people could register and fill in the claim forms and submit any supporting documentation to document their claim. And then the claiming period would close on that 180th day. The next phase is claim review. Now, this actually runs concurrently with that 180 days when people can file their claims. We would begin reviewing claims as soon as they are filed. And we do that because we do not want to extend the program any longer than necessary. to get people to the point in time when they actually receive compensation. So we want to start processing claims, reviewing documentation as soon as it comes in, so we can address any questions and issues that may arise in reviewing that documentation. Hand in hand with that review, there's the next phase, and that's deficiency notices. If we identify an issue with the documentation that's been provided, and this can be a whole host of different things, misspellings of, say, a business name that we need clarification on, or a missing invoice or receipt for a claimed out-of-pocket expense, things of that nature, we'll alert claimants of that throughout the course of this process, so they have an opportunity to address those issues. That's running hand in hand with once the 180-day claiming period is closed, we will go into the deficiency review period, where we won't be taking in new claims, but we will be doing the final review of all of the information that's provided, and begin valuing claims. The valuation process, after all the claims have been received and we've determined what claims are going to be allowed, we will calculate the values of those claims and determine how much of the community claims fund each claimant will receive as compensation once we've determined the total claimed amount for the entire population. Then once we've determined those values, we will make offers. And that is a fairly simple, straightforward process. We issue the offers, and we give each claimant 30 days to sign a release of liability that is required under the settlement agreement, at which point we will have everything we need to make the distributions after we have reviewed those releases to make sure they're properly signed and everything is in order. Now, recognizing that we are human at Verus and we are not perfect, we do occasionally make mistakes. There will be a reconsideration period at the end of this program, where claimants who believe that we've erred in the calculation of the value of their claim will have a short period of time to ask for a reconsideration. And once those reconsiderations have all been reviewed, we will begin making distributions. The distribution process, I'll get into more detail in later, but that is usually a number of different options for claimants to request payment, electronic options as well as physical checks. And depending on the options they choose, that process of clearing those funds and getting them in the hands of the claimants could take anywhere from a few days to a few months. When you lay this, if you could go to the next slide, when you look at this on a timeline, we estimate to do all of this could take up to 18 months. I say up to because the last 120 days on here is the payment process. And given that most of the claimants in this community claims fund are likely to be business owners and such, we expect most claimants will want payment electronically. Those clear very quickly. It could just be a matter of a week or two before those payments are all distributed, unless there are a significant number of requests for physical checks. If we could go to the next slide, I'll get into a little more detail on each one of these phases. So the legal notice, as I mentioned earlier, will invite claimants will be published on a website, and there may be other methods that we could issue notice, including emails, publications, local publications, etc., for getting word out that the community claim fund has now been established and we are accepting claims. The legal notice that you see here on the right-hand side of the slide is a draft. When it is finalized and we are actually ready to launch the process, there will be included in this a QR code that people could just take a picture of with their phone, and it'll take them straight to the online portal to register and begin filing a claim. We'll also have a URL established for that portal. But we're not restricting people because we recognize some people may prefer to file claims by other means than submitting them online. People will also have the option of filing those claims by mail, so there will be a mailing address to submit those claims. And also, we will publish a dedicated phone number and email address to reach out with any questions that claimants may have about the process. We operate and manage these programs in a very transparent fashion, obviously respecting the privacy of the claimants and ensuring confidentiality of information they provide to us. But we think that it is in the best interest of everyone involved to be as communicative as possible, and we make ourselves available to the entire claimant population to answer questions as they arise, recognizing that these processes are not everyday things, and most people may have questions about how this program will unfold. The notice, of course, will include an overview of the settlement process, and as I mentioned, also lay out all the deadlines involved here. Next slide, please. So the settlement website. This is, again, a draft that you see on the right-hand side, but this will be a public-facing website where community members can go to get more information about the settlement. And on that website, we will obviously be posting a copy of the notice, as well as a copy of the settlement agreement, link to the claimant portal. We are also in the process of drafting FAQs, frequently asked questions, and the answers to those questions that will also be on that website, as well as the contact information that I already mentioned for people to reach out and get answers to their questions. The portal, which is on the next slide, for every program we administer, we set up a unique portal that allows people to securely register their desire to file a claim and actually submit that claim online. The portal will allow people, once they've actually registered, to come back at any time. You do not have to, it's not a one-shot deal where you have to complete your claim form and submit it the first time you access the portal. You can, once registered, come back at any time, fill in as much information as you have time to do, come back and complete it at a later time. In addition to filling out the claim form, it allows you to upload any claimant to upload any supporting documentation that's required to document their claim, any of the elements of proof, which I will get into a little bit later. They can come back at any time to check on the status of their claim. And we use this portal also as a means of effective communication with claimants who want to make use of the online system. We publish notices here if we've identified any deficiencies that we need them to address, any clarifying questions we have of them, and they can check on those on a regular basis. They can also use the portal to submit any additional information once they've filed the claim form and submitted it. Initially, they can come back in and amend it and upload additional documentation. This is also the primary means of signing off on releases once we've valued the claim and extended an offer to compensate that claimant. Next slide, please. The claim form itself, we try to keep these fairly simple and straightforward. We are not fans of overly long, complex claim forms that ask for a lot of extraneous information. In order to have a claim considered, a claimant must complete the claim the claim form in its entirety, all of the required fields. And then once they've completed all the required fields, it will go into a processing queue, and we'll process claims in the order in which they're received. As I mentioned earlier, you can save progress on a claim submission. You do not have to, a claimant does not have to fill it out completely the first time they access the system. Also allows the electronic signatures And the portal also allows us to close off the claiming window once that initial 180-day time period has elapsed. But claimants would still have access to the portal to submit any subsequent information once the deadline has passed that's necessary to get their claim fully processed. Next slide, please. Supporting documents. This is an important part to understand in claims such as this that will involve a lot of different types of potential types of out-of-pocket expenses, as well as documentation to support lost revenue for businesses that are part of the community. This can run the gamut from invoices that you paid contractors, say, to clean up a property, or profit and loss statements, correspondence from customers canceling contracts, canceling rental agreements, anything of that nature. We recognize that businesses run the gamut in terms of the sophistication of their documents and their accounting systems. So it is not a one-size-fits-all process where we're going to require standardized documentation to support these claims. We've got a great deal of experience dealing with business disruption claims brought by small businesses, and we recognize the varying levels of sophistication in terms of record keeping that we need to be prepared for. So the documentation in general that we will require would also include documentation of the capacity of the individual who's filing the claim to actually sign on behalf of, say, a business entity, proof that they are either the owner or an officer of that business who has the legal authority to sign off on the release and accept the compensation. We will not accept claims that do not have any supporting documents. But we will alert claimants if they file a claim without supporting documents of what is missing and what we will require before we can adjudicate their claim. The next slide, please. The document process itself is fairly straightforward. We will, as I mentioned earlier, begin reviewing documents as soon as claim forms are submitted and documents are provided. We have developed very sophisticated technology for identifying duplicate documentation. We recognize that you may have a lot of complex documents and there may often be duplicative information in there. We have a process of identifying those so that we are not spending unnecessary time reviewing the same documents multiple times. We will also have a team of accountants who are familiar with these types of claims who will be reviewing all of the financial information that is necessary to support these claims. As I mentioned earlier, P&L statements, invoices, things of that nature, and verifying what the allowed amounts for both expenses and lost revenues may be. The next slide, please. The claim review itself, as I mentioned, this will run concurrently. We will begin reviewing claims as soon as we start accepting claims, assuming there will be claims ready for review fairly early in the process. One thing I would mention, in our experience with settlement programs such as this, it is not unusual for the majority of claims to be filed very close to the deadline. We do not, in this case, however, anticipate that will be the case because of the attention of the community on this particular issue, the profile of it, and the communications the township has already had with the local community about this settlement. We think there will be much more claiming earlier in the process, and we don't anticipate that we will have a lot of claims filed near the deadline that would require an extensive period post deadline to review them all. The Next slide, please. One thing before I dive into this, I think it's important to note that one of the particular elements of proof here that we will be looking for is not just that claims of out-of-pocket expenses or lost revenue, but they must be temporally related to the turbine blade failure and the subsequent cleanup efforts. That may seem obvious on the face of it, but I think it's important to stress that we will be making sure that all of the documentation that is submitted in support of these claims lines up on the timeline, and that the claimed losses are attributable, directly related to the event. The deficiencies, once we've begun reviewing claims and issuing deficiency notices, we typically in these programs give claimants a period of time to cure those deficiencies and submit additional information. In this case, we are providing for a 60-day deadline once we've issued a deficiency notification to a claimant for them to respond to that and provide additional information, at which point we will need additional time to review that information. Next slide, please. The valuation process. Once we have finished the review and the review of deficiency responses, we will begin evaluating cases. This will, in our estimation, require about 30 days of time. The typical method when you're dealing with a limited settlement fund, not an open-ended settlement fund, is that once you have reviewed all the cases and determined which cases are compensable and the value of those cases, is to calculate a pro rata share. If the total value of the allowed claims exceeds the available funds, each claimant would receive a proportional share relative to the total value of all the allowed claims of the available funds. If the allowed amounts are less than the available funds, then we have a different situation where we can pay every claimant in full. We do not have a good estimation right now of which situation may play out, but we are prepared for either eventuality. The next slide, please. This is an important part. Once we have allowed a claim, we will issue a notice to the claimant of the allowed amount, and they will be required to sign a release. This is a requirement of the settlement agreement with GE Verona. We will send them out and notify all of the allowed claimants on the same date. And claimants will have 30 days to review that release, review the allowed amount of their claim, and sign that release if they decide to accept the allowed amount. At the point when they sign the release, they'll also be asked to submit their election on how they would like to be compensated. We prefer making payments electronically. We anticipate most claimants will want funds to be directly deposited into a bank account of their choosing, and the online portal allows them to provide all the information, the banking details, to make those direct deposits. If claimants do elect for paper checks, that obviously takes a longer period of time to issue those checks. Not a lot of time to issue them, but then we often see situations where those checks aren't cleared right away. So the timeline to fully distribute the money could extend beyond a few weeks if there are paper checks that are requested.
Mark, I have a question. Yes. If someone receives a payment, their claim has been processed and they're going to get paid, their name is then public, correct? Or is it never public?
Typically, we do not share the identities of claimants. As I mentioned earlier, we respect the privacy of claimants in programs like this. there are occasionally situations where a settlement requires that the names of claimants be made public. I do not recall seeing that anywhere in this settlement agreement that would be a requirement.
Mark, I can speak to that. This is Brooke. We actually directly dealt with this in the negotiations with GE Vernova, and we assured the confidentiality of the names will be released to GE Vernova because they have to know who it is because they've signed a release of liability. So if someone were to file a legal action, they need to know who signed the release in acceptance of the claim, but they are bound to keep those names confidential. GE Vernova is as well.
Are we bound to keep them confidential?
Yes.
And town council has signed off of that. I know all the PPP stuff, the names and the amounts were all public.
The confidentiality was baked into this, but we can double check it with Greg.
I would make sure. Just, I want people to know if they apply going in, whether they're going to be public or not. I think it's important.
The intention was to keep the names confidential.
And that is fairly typical of private settlements. It's usually, public notice is usually required in government programs and settlements involving state actors. But a very good question. All right. I think there may be one more slide. All right, 2 more slides. As I mentioned earlier, once we have actually extended offers, we do recognize that occasionally a claimant may not initially accept the offer that's been extended. They may think that the allowed amount is too low, or from time to time we disallow a claim and they may disagree with the logic in reaching that disallowance conclusion. So in every settlement program, we have a reconsideration period. Once we've made those determinations and notified claimants of the outcome of their claim, we provide claimants with an opportunity to request a reconsideration, whether that is to ask for a reconsideration of the allowed amount of an approved claim, or to ask for reconsideration of a disallowed claim. We handle those in the same fashion. Oftentimes we will retain a neutral mediator. We do not want to be the ones making a decision about reconsidering our own decision. So we will often put that in the hands of a neutral mediator who will evaluate the request for reconsideration in our original decision and make a determination.
Yeah. Matt has a question.
Here's a question. Let's say someone has I'll use myself. I'm not going to file a claim, but let's pretend I said, hey, I'm a sandwich shop and I usually do, $6,000 a day, and I only did $4,000 a day for those 6 days. So I'm down $12,000. Are you going to give the person $12,000? Are you going to give them the gross amount? Or are you going to give them the net amount and say, well, wait a minute, that $12,000 is made up of wages and this and that, and the other that you didn't have to spend. Are you going to, what's the standard on these types of things?
The standard is it's a little squishy on these types of things, but generally it's going to come down to how solid is the evidence that the actual decrease in income is a result of the particular event. That's not always easy to prove, so there is some judgment that comes into play, and that's a decision that's going to be made on the preponderance of the evidence. Can they show that a pattern of, say, 3 to 5 prior years, that every July they had average weekly sales of X amount, and this time period it was 1/2 of X. So there's a clear pattern of a disruption in that previous pattern.
All right, so follow up, please. So let's say they say they made half of X. Are they going to get that half of X if there's enough money? or do they get the profit they would have gotten on that half of an X?
It would be the typical calculation. It would be the net income. You're going to calculate what the difference in the net income is, because to your point, if they had to close up the shop for 5 days, well, they probably didn't pay any of their part-time labor during that 5-day period, so their expenses were also down.
Right.
So you're taking all of that into consideration.
I think it's important for the public to understand that this is, this isn't a, sort of a PPP trough of money, that it's actually, this is why we put this in place, is to have a process with a standard. So
It's different from PPP. It is very similar in some regards to a different government program that was established during COVID, and that was the employee retention credit. I don't know how familiar anyone is with that, but there were clear guidelines published by the IRS on how to calculate revenue declines as a result of the COVID pandemic. So it's very similar in that approach and the nature of the proof that we'll be looking for.
makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay,
I think it's impressive.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. The credit goes to my team and Caitlin's team, and I'm just a spokesperson.
Well, they made you look good.
Well, thanks for a great presentation.
Brooke, if I may, can I just address Matt's question from earlier on the confidentiality? Brooke's recollection, as is not surprising to me, is exactly correct. We will provide sanitized reports once the claims begin to be approved. That will share total number of claims submitted, amounts of claims, but keep individual claimant privacy obscure. And so only GEV will receive copies of the actual executed releases. I just wanted to confirm that for everyone.
Great, thank you, Matt.
And Mr. Giorgio is online. I would like to make sure that he reviews and agrees that that's allowed, because we are a public entity and it is money that's coming in. So, don't have to do it tonight, but I just want to double check.
Matt,
I'm a little
yes.
surprised.
Matt, we will double check on that as well, because we do have to be concerned about what happens if someone makes a public records request for the names of the persons receiving compensation, and we can analyze that and give you a better idea of how that might likely play out.
Thank you, John. Anything else on this? Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Our remaining item on the agenda is committee reports. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. We are adjourned.